I don't think they're appropriate tactics, but it happens to everybody. From the only people it doesn't happen to are people who have Secret Service standing around them. It's part of the process.
President Biden trying to downplay and dismiss far-left protesters targeting moderate Democratic senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. The progressive activists taking things to a whole new level and following Sinema into a bathroom while demanding she back the president's agenda.
We need a Build Back Better plan right now.
We need solutions to the Build Back Better plan.
We knocked on doors for you to get you elected, and just how we got you elected, we can get you out of office if you don't support what you promised us.
And a swarm of protesters made their voices heard outside Joe Manchin's houseboat, insisting he raise taxes on wealthy Americans.
Senator, this is an investment. This is not giving out money. This is not spending. This is investing, and this is building the state that we both love. That's why we're both here fighting for our people.
Plus, President Biden singling out those two moderates for not getting on board and backing trillions in new spending.
I've been able to close a deal on 99% of my party. Two people. That's still underway. I need 50 votes in the Senate. I have 48. Well, I laid out what I thought it should be. The legislation, both the Build Back Better piece as well as the infrastructure piece, are things that I wrote. These didn't come from, God love him, Bernie Sanders or AOC or anybody else. I wrote them.
All right, Kennedy, I can't stand phones in bathrooms, like in the public restroom when people are on the phone. I can't take it. If this would happen to me, I probably would have completely lost it. She was there to teach her class that she teaches at Arizona State University and gets followed into the bathroom, not by just women, but men too.
Yeah.
And Biden's like, yeah, that happens to everybody. It's part of the process.
No, it is such a childish and emotionalist tactic, and it's unacceptable. You know, we saw this throughout the entire Trump administration, how many members of the administration were shouted out of restaurants. It's not acceptable. If you don't want someone to do that to you, do not do that to someone else, and I really hope that this steals Kyrsten Sinema's spine. I hope she takes this as some sort of inspiration to not bend to the loud mob, because she shouldn't. She should be looking at the bottom line. She should be looking at the price tag and her constituents and what they and the American people can afford, and they can't afford $3.5 trillion. She knows it. Joe Manchin knows it. The entire Democrat Party knows it. But it reminds me of when my 16-year-old daughter wants to go to Lululemon and buy some stuff. I'm like, how much does this stuff cost? And the Democrats are acting like my daughter. They want to pretend like it doesn't cost anything. And so AOC and her squad cohorts are saying, let's not focus on the price tag. Let's not focus on how much this stuff costs. Like, oh, yes, we absolutely are, because I know you can't afford those Lululemon pants, and I sure as heck am not going to buy them for you.
I think Kyrsten Sinema seems like the kind of person, Greg, who would not be bullied into changing her behavior because of being followed into a bathroom.
You know why she went in there? She was trying to stall them.
No.
There's something about the fact that she is a woman, which is why they did it, because there's an assumption that she wouldn't be violent, which is wrong. She should have been. She would have had a guy follows her into the bathroom, and I don't know, maybe he doesn't identify as a guy, but if a guy followed my wife into the bathroom, whatever he identifies with would soon be a non-life form. She had, like, I'm sorry, I don't know when this happens, when is violence is certainly okay in this. If you're in the bathroom and somebody's filming you, that is an assault. It's an assault on you. That is your privacy. You should kick that door out, hit them right in the face, and that's the end of it. And then and by the way, in this nation of equity and equality, does it matter what the gender is if somebody's coming into your bathroom? If they don't see it as a problem, then you shouldn't have any problem fighting back. However, I say that not understanding the law. So I'm going to leave that to Harold to tell me if what I just said it would actually be illegal to go out and beat the crap out of somebody who's filming you in the bathroom. Biden is wrong. It doesn't happen to everybody. No. It doesn't happen to. Never happens to a leftist. If you're a non-liberal, including Democrats, it can happen to you. In a perfect world, yes, we could all have Secret Service like Joe, and we could all swim around naked in front of them. But unfortunately, a lot of us don't have Secret Service or pools.
That's true. We should get a pool, though, for all of us to share.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Harold, Kyrsten Sinema's position was, let's pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And she said, like, Biden supports that bill. That was actually the position Speaker Pelosi was in, whipping that bill, trying to get support for that bill. When President Biden came in on Friday afternoon, it was like, actually, no. We want these two things to be linked forever. And I think that there are a lot of Democrats who are probably hiding behind Manchin and Sinema, hoping they don't change their minds.
Well, I don't think there are many hiding. I think they're out front. First off, I think that I've had people not follow me in the bathroom, but I've had people harass and say the most horrible things. And it's part of the business. You got to kind of deal with it like Joe Manchin did. He's got a little skill, humor. He got on the back of his boat and said, look, I'm with you guys. I'm just not with you on everything. Two, we have to remember, Biden beat Sanders in the primary. Democrats rejected Sanders. Now, you may not like Biden's plan, but he beat Sanders, and Sanders ran on essentially the $6 trillion plan. Now, I think the majority of the Democratic Party is with Biden and is with even Pelosi on this, and it should say does not want to go down the path that perhaps AOC and Sanders want. Third thing is, I am the money side of this. I know we're going to talk about it a little later. Jen Psaki, I don't think and we disagree on this, I don't think what Biden is saying when he says this is a zero cost, all he's saying is that it's paid for. Now, you may not like how, you may not like how it's paid for. You may not like, right, but understand what we're talking about. We now have a debt ceiling debate in this country right now because we pass things and we never, ever pay for it. Now, you may not like the fact that taxes are being raised on people earning, I don't like parts of it, but at least he has the decency to say we're going to not add debt on top of the already $27 trillion worth of debt. In fact, I think anytime Congress votes in the future for something that they don't raise revenue for, they should automatically put a line and say we will automatically raise the debt ceiling for this and not have a debate about raising it. Because now you have Republicans not wanting to do it.
Then it would be limitless. Like it would.
But everybody would be on the record voting for it. Because if you're a member of Congress and you voted for saying, I'm going to pass something, it's going to cost $2 trillion, $1 trillion, $3 trillion, whatever the number, but we're going to raise the debt ceiling to do it, then you're on the hook for it as opposed to being able to say, Jesse did it, or Greg did it, or Greg and Jesse did it, or Dana did it,
Your
whatever.
guy's now going to be the $6 trillion man after he's finished with this. I want to talk about this woman.
Okay.
I actually went into a bathroom and followed Al Gore. But unlike this woman, I have standards, and once I realized I was following someone into the bathroom with a camera, I went up and I turned around. She's 47 years old. She is way too old to be doing something like this. She's got a PhD from George Washington University, and she's following people into the bathroom and screaming at them. She's also a Bernie Sanders field organizer. She introduced Crazy Bernie a couple times. She's not some low-level person on the totem pole. This is a Bernie bro, or broette, however you want to refer to it as. And I didn't like her delivery, the way she memorized this. It was chanting, and at the end, if you watch the whole thing, she's giggling afterwards. You're supposed to ask leading questions. And elicit a response, right? That's the way you do this. It's called bird dogging. It's when you kind of harass politicians in public places. Totally different than what I used to do.
Also, the irony is that filming it does not help her cause. Like, we saw what an jackass she was.
Sympathizes with Sinema in this situation.
It doesn't help her cause in a purple state, certainly.
No.
And full disclosure, I did follow Rahm Emanuel into the men's room.
Right, and did you stay?
He was in there for a long time. I had to leave after a while.
All right, and it is, Greg, it's a felony. In Arizona, to film someone in the bathroom.
But what if you punch them?
That I don't know about, and I'm not going to weigh in on.
Somebody give me a ring.
Pepper
I just need
spray?
to know this.
Yeah, things we need to know for the next block.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.